The morning sun barely crept over the horizon when Private Elena Martinez stepped off the transport truck at Camp Ironwood. She was small, barely 5'2", with delicate features and hands that looked like they belonged to a pianist rather than a soldier. The other recruits towered over her, their muscular frames casting shadows across her path as they unloaded their gear. Sergeant Kane, a battle-hardened veteran with a scar running down his left cheek, watched from the drill grounds with narrowed eyes. He had seen hundreds of recruits come through these gates, and this one looked like she might break before the first week ended. The whispers started immediately. "She won't last a day," muttered Corporal Hayes, a broad-shouldered man from Texas who prided himself on his strength. Private Jackson, standing beside him with arms crossed, shook his head slowly. "I give her 3 days tops. This ain't ballet class." Elena heard every word, but her expression remained calm, almost serene. She had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving, and she had nothing to prove with words. Her duffel bag hit the ground with a soft thud as she found her assigned bunk in the barracks. The metal frame creaked under her weight as she sat down, and across from her, Private Sophie Chen offered a sympathetic smile. "Don't listen to them," Sophie whispered. "They're all bark until someone proves them wrong. The first 3 days were brutal." The 5 a.m. wake-up calls came like thunderclaps, dragging exhausted bodies from their bunks into the cold morning air. Elena struggled through the obstacle courses, her small frame working twice as hard to climb the walls and navigate the rope bridges. During the 10-mile runs at 6:30 a.m., she fell behind the pack, her breath coming in ragged gasps as her boots pounded against the dirt trail. Sergeant Kane watched her stumble across the finish line each time, always last, always looking like she might collapse. "Martinez!" he barked one morning. "This is the United States Army, not a charity program. You need to keep up or ship out." Elena straightened, despite the fire in her lungs, met his gaze directly, and replied in a steady voice, "I'll keep up, Sergeant. I promise you that." But it was Thursday afternoon at 2:15 p.m. when everything changed. The recruits assembled at the combat training facility, a massive warehouse filled with simulation equipment and tactical gear. Today was hand-to-hand combat practice, the moment many had been waiting for. Sergeant Kane paired them off systematically, and Elena found herself standing across from Corporal Hayes, who grinned down at her with obvious amusement. "Try not to get hurt, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. The other recruits formed a circle around them, some already laughing, anticipating an easy victory for Hayes. Sophie caught Elena's eye from the crowd and gave her an encouraging nod, though even she looked worried. "Begin!" Sergeant Kane's voice cut through the air like a blade. Hayes lunged forward with confidence, expecting to overwhelm her immediately with his size advantage. But Elena moved like water, sliding to the side with a grace that seemed impossible. Hayes stumbled forward, confused, as his target simply wasn't where she should have been. He spun around, frustration creeping into his expression, and threw a heavy punch. Elena ducked under it, and in one fluid motion she swept his legs out from under him. The big man crashed to the mat with a sound that echoed through the warehouse. Stunned silence filled the room. Hayes scrambled to his feet, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "Lucky shot," he growled, circling her more carefully now. Elena said nothing. Her body relaxed, but her eyes intensely focused. She moved again, this time intercepting his advance with a series of precise strikes to pressure points that made his arm go temporarily numb. Before anyone could blink, she had him in a submission hold, his own weight working against him. "Yield," she said quietly, her voice calm. Hayes tapped the mat twice, signaling surrender, and Elena released him immediately, stepping back with respect. The warehouse erupted in shocked murmurs. Sergeant Kane stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Where did you learn to fight like that, Martinez?" Elena stood at attention. "My father, Sergeant. He was a Marine Corps martial arts instructor before he retired. I've been training since I was 6 years old." Kane's eyebrows rose slightly. "And you didn't think to mention this before?" Elena allowed herself a small smile. "You didn't ask, Sergeant." And I figured actions speak louder than words. For the next hour, Elena demonstrated techniques that left even Sergeant Kane impressed. She moved through opponents with a combination of speed, strategy, and technical precision that belied her appearance. Private Jackson, who had mocked her just days earlier, found himself face down on the mat before he realized what happened. Even Sophie, her only friend in the barracks, was shocked by the transformation from the struggling recruit to this tactical fighter. But Elena remained humble, helping each person up after their match and offering pointers on their technique. "You're telegraphing your right hook," she told Jackson softly. "Keep your shoulders steady and they won't see it coming." The real test came at 4:30 p.m. when Sergeant Kane announced a surprise tactical simulation. "This is a hostage rescue scenario," he explained, his voice grave. "You'll work in teams. One team defends, one team attacks. Real rubber bullets, protective gear mandatory. Martinez, your team leader for the attackers." The announcement sent shock waves through the group. Hayes stepped forward, about to protest, but Kane silenced him with a look. "You got a problem, Corporal? Maybe you'd like to explain how she put you on your back in 15 seconds. Hayes swallowed his objection and fell in line. Elena gathered her team in a huddle. 5 soldiers, all bigger and more experienced looking than her, waited skeptically. "Listen," she began, her voice steady and confident. "They'll expect us to breach the front because that's standard protocol. But look at the layout." She pointed to the facility map. "There's a ventilation system here that connects to the holding room. 2 of us create a diversion at the front entrance at exactly 6:12 p.m. The rest of us go through the vents and extract the hostage while they're focused on the noise." Private Thompson, a tactical specialist, studied the map and nodded slowly. That could actually work. It's risky, but it could work. The simulation began with the sound of a klaxon at 6 o'clock p.m. sharp. Elena led her team through the shadows, her small size becoming an advantage as she navigated the tight ventilation shafts. Behind her, Thompson and 2 others followed, their breathing controlled and quiet. At the front entrance, Hayes and Jackson created chaos, firing rubber rounds and shouting commands to draw attention. The defending team rushed to reinforce the front exactly as Elena predicted. She dropped silently into the holding room at 6:14 p.m., her team flowing in behind her like a choreographed dance. The single guard stationed with the hostage spun around in surprise, but Elena was already moving. She disarmed him with 2 precise moves, and Thompson secured the hostage within seconds. "Package secure," Elena whispered into her comm unit. "Extraction in progress." The exfiltration was textbook perfect. They moved through the back corridors while the defenders were still focused on the front assault. By the time Sergeant Kane called exercise complete at 6:23 p.m., Elena's team stood outside the facility with the hostage safe and sound, not a single team member tagged by rubber bullets. The defending team emerged, looking confused and defeated. Kane approached Elena, and for the first time since her arrival, she saw something resembling respect in his eyes. "Outstanding work, Private Martinez. That was some of the best tactical thinking I've seen from a recruit." He turned to address everyone. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never judge a soldier by their appearance. Judge them by their skills, their mind, and their heart." That evening in the mess hall, the atmosphere had completely shifted. Hayes approached Elena's table where she sat with Sophie, his expression humble. "Hey, Martinez, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you, and that was wrong." Elena looked up and smiled genuinely. "We're all on the same team, Hayes, no apology needed. But maybe next time, give someone a chance before you write them off." He nodded, extending his hand. She shook it firmly, and just like that, the divide began to close. As the weeks progressed, Elena became not just accepted, but respected. She continued to struggle with the physical endurance requirements, still finishing last in most runs, but her teammates now waited for her at the finish line, cheering her on. She excelled in strategy sessions, hand-to-hand combat, and tactical planning, earning top marks in every simulation. Sergeant Kane pulled her aside one morning at 7:30 a.m. "Martinez, I'm recommending you for advanced tactical training after basic. The Army needs soldiers who can think as well as fight." Elena stood a little taller. "Thank you, Sergeant. I won't let you down." The final graduation ceremony took place on a crisp autumn morning. Families and friends gathered to watch their soldiers complete basic training. Elena's father sat in the front row, his Marine Corps cap on his knee, pride shining in his eyes. As Sergeant Kane called her name and she stepped forward to receive her completion certificate, the entire platoon erupted in applause. The fragile-looking recruit had transformed into a soldier, not through size or strength,